All right. I think we're going to get started here. A lot of energy in the room, a lot of good conversations. Always takes some time for those to taper down. Everybody's in an important conversation. Anyway, welcome. Thanks for coming out tonight. There still are some seats up front here. There's 5 at this table. Got a couple over here. Welcome to grab a seat up front here if you want. And there's also some chairs in the back, so grab yourself a seat somewhere. And we're going to get started. So my name is Jake Byler. I am your host for this meeting, and I'm excited that you're here to spend the evening with us. This is a group that simply started about 10 years ago, simply for the purpose of bringing investors together for education. I like to look at it this way: for education, inspiration, and connection. Not necessarily in that order. These groups are largely known as educational meetings, and they are certainly that. I hope it's educational for you tonight. But perhaps even more than that, it is a means of inspiration for a lot of us, as well as connection to other investors, business owners, whatever. So thanks for coming out. Just curious, how many of you are here for the very first time? Nice. It's always nice to see who's here for the first time. We get speakers from various different areas, a lot of varying topics and stuff. And based off of that, we often get speakers or people coming out that are following them, or people that just found out about the group or whatever. So thanks for coming out. Most of you know that these meetings are primarily paid for by sponsors, and our sponsors for this year, there's 6 of them. Sponsors are Dave Wolf from Principal Mortgage Group. Dave has spoken at our meeting a couple of times. Chet Lapp, Providence Abstracting Company. Benyel Esh, he's a local realtor, a good friend of mine. Chris Good works with Benyel on his team, and we're going to hear a little bit of an update from Chris just shortly, a market update and some miscellaneous things. Molly from Lanka Federal Credit Union. Jeff Moeller, he's a private lender in the area. And Joe Liowski, Compass Property Management. Joe's the one that started this group about 10 years ago. So those are the sponsors for this year, and they are the ones that have paid for the space and for your seat tonight. If you are not on our email list and would like to be, there's a paper on the table in the back where you can scan a QR code and hop on our email list if you would like to. I'm going to get Chris. Chris, you can come on up here. Chris has been doing this. Chris and Benyel switch off, and not always the same, but we like to get a little bit of a market update and just some local current real estate thoughts and some miscellaneous tips and tidbits from a local realtor. So I'll turn it over to Chris.
Thank you, Jake. Looking forward to the panel tonight. I feel like sometimes maybe we get a little redundant up here. I thought I'd maybe pull back and look at the real estate market as a whole and share a few fun facts that I came up with. In 2023, fewer than 4 million homes were sold. That was the lowest amount of transactions in 30 years. And in 1993, the U.S. population was 260 million, and as of now, it's 340 million. Big difference in population, but low real estate transactions. The average home price in 93 was around $150,000. That varies a little bit depending on where you're getting your information. And the average home price nationally in 23 was around $400,000. A nice jump there. Excuse me. Wasn't sure how to smoothly transition to this, but wanted to talk a little bit about controlling your operating costs on your rental properties. As rates cut into your profit margin, and as your portfolio grows, it can make a big difference to focus on some of the smaller things. This is by no means an exhaustive list. There's more things that can be added to that. Having pros on your team like Compass Property Management can be a good resource to help you find some additional ways to keep your costs down. Insurance, it can pay to check around with different insurance companies. Shaving $100 off your premium over 30 units or 30 properties adds a nice little boost to your bottom line. A good insurance agent can check around multiple companies for you and make recommendations based on your situation. Appealing taxes. I've successfully appealed a couple, would be appealing the assessment really. I've successfully appealed a couple property assessments to lower the real estate taxes. It's a little, being real estate did what it did in the last few years with appreciation, it's a little tougher to make that happen. But anyway, there's attorneys that specialize in that, and oftentimes their fee is just a percentage of your first year's tax savings. So might be something worth looking into. Something I've been doing personally is submetering my properties or submetering the water. Basically, you're adding a meter to each unit and billing back the tenants for their water usage. Each unit monitors their water usage, so you bill them accordingly. And oftentimes, sewage is also billed based on the amount of gallons coming in, so you have the information you need to bill them back for that as well. And then we'll simply split the trash bill evenly among the units, whether it's 2, 10, whatever it is. We just split it evenly. A couple things I've found that I thought was interesting. I've been using it. I've been doing this for about 5 years. It does tend to affect the rent price a little bit, but usually not so much that it takes away the advantage of doing that. Whereas, for example, our average water bill is maybe $80, or this would be water, sewer, and trash combined. It might affect our rent by $40. So you still have $40 per month difference that you're adding to your bottom line. Depending on how the building is laid out, oftentimes it'll take some rerouting of the water lines to make sure each meter is feeding only one unit. So there's some costs with the plumber you'll have with that. But even with that, our average return on investment has been about 1 to 2 years to fully recoup the cost we put into making that happen. Making sure I'm not missing anything here. I personally use a company called True Submeter. Been working with them for about 5 years and have been happy with them. I did put some flyers on the back table that you can grab if you're interested with a little more information. There's a phone number you can call in there. You can call them directly. I even put my number on the back if you have any questions you want to ask me directly. Just full disclosure, I do get a little commission if somebody buys using the discount code on the front of the flyer. That's not why I'm presenting it. I use it myself and think it's... Anyway, that's all I had, and I'll hand it over to Jake.
I like the list of stuff that you had there, Chris, as far as saving in different areas, because a lot of times we focus on the rent. We think the rent increase is the only way to increase income, and if we can, whether it's appealing tax assessments or just managing costs otherwise, that's a really good thing to be aware of. You guys might have seen a paper like this on the table in the back. This is not an event that I'm a part of, but I wanted to share it with you guys because I think Airbnb owners and managers might be interested in it. Most of you guys know, or many of Landon Schlebaugh and his team, B&B Breeze, they are hosting all-day short-term rental summit on April the 17th. They are hosting it at the Silk Mill on Main here in New Holland. They have, I didn't see the whole list yet, but they have some people coming in from the industry that are pretty high up there in some different areas, and should be a fun event. I'm signed up for it. The fee, the info is all on the paper, but it's a $150 sign-up fee, includes coffee and lunch and everything. As of this morning, they had 47 spots left. They have room for 200 people total, so it should be a nice group of people to just get around. If you have any interest in short-term rentals, short-term rental management, might be something you want to check out. I think I have 20 of these on the table in the back. You're welcome to take one, has a QR code on, and I also taped one to the table so that at least one stays there that you can take a picture of it or scan the QR code if you want to. So April 17th, it's like a month and a half or almost a month and a half out. If you have any interest in short-term rental, check it out. Alrighty, if you read the email that I sent out or somehow got the information, you have a little bit of an idea of what we're in for tonight. And if you've been coming to these meetings for a while, you know that we like to do just different things. Speakers of all kinds, panel discussions. It's just fun to mix things up and do things that just give us a broader perspective into different businesses, different investing, different ways of doing things. Again, inspiration, all of those things. What kind of inspired me to ask Ezra Smucker and Jake Esh to speak tonight is the fact that they are in my opinion, two very young business owners that got started quite a bit younger than I did, probably younger than most of us in the room if you are here as an investor, and just thought it would be fun to sit down with them, have a good old panel discussion, give them the opportunity to tell some stories, how they got to where they are, what they're doing, and all of that. So I got a list of questions for these guys. I'm also going to be depending on you guys to have some questions at some point, and we're just going to have a fun discussion, all right? So with that, why don't we welcome these guys up? Jake and Ezra, give them a big hand. That one. Test, test. There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to briefly introduce these guys, and then I'm also going to get them to each tell us a bit about who they are, how they got started, and all of that. Jake here, I actually have not known Jake for probably less than a year. I started seeing you some here and there, and just got connected in the last half year. So basically, what I put on the email, so Jake actually is not currently a real estate investor. Just so you know, that's not like a qualifier to be in this room. It's not a qualifier to be up here speaking. Jake is not currently a real estate investor. He probably will be at some point, but that doesn't really matter whether he will be or not. He started doing some side jobs around when you're still a teenager, right? At 21, you launched your own business, and now 5 years later, you have a business with 20 employees, outdoor living spaces, and you built a couple Taco Bells, is that right?
Yeah, we did.
That's
A
like,
total of 3.
that's like, how do you do that? So I'm really anxious to ask Jake a lot of questions that I personally don't know the answers to. I'm just looking to dig into this and hear more about your journey of how you got there. And Ezra, I've known Ezra for probably 5 years, 4 or 5 years.
Yep, I believe so. We back in Rumspringa days.
Yeah.
So.
Ezra actually did a couple of jobs for me. The Mulberry Street flip in Lancaster City, you did a bunch of that work for me.
Yep, that was early on when I first got started in
Yeah.
2020, I believe that was.
Sounds
So,
about right.
He helped me get started. So.
Yeah, and the Harrisburg Airbnb, you and your team did a good bit of work at that property for us. But anyway, Ezra started at 19 years old, bought a 2-unit, and now 4 years later, you're at 19 units and just knocking it out of the park. And it's like, when I was, listen to this. So I presented here 2 months ago. Some of you heard my story. When I was 23 years old, I had 0 rental properties. I was still working a full-time job, making about $13 an hour. Not that's a bad thing. There's many of you guys here tonight that work a job, and there's nothing wrong with that. My point is, the way you got started and the trajectory that you're on is wild getting started that young. I worked a full-time job until I was 28, and I don't know that I would do a whole lot different if I could go back, because we obviously learned from all of that. Anyway, I'm going to sit down here eventually. So something I wanted to mention, almost like a disclaimer type of thing. There's a lot of times, whether I'm writing the emails or I am introducing these guys, we put a lot of emphasis on how big the business is, how many employees, how many doors, how many units, right? And it's natural to do that, because whether you realize it or not, when you're sitting somewhere listening to a speaker, your brain is what you're thinking, you probably don't realize this consciously, but what you're thinking is, who are you? And why should I listen? Who are you? What are you talking about? And why should I care, right? If someone's up there talking, it's nice to know a little bit about them. And it's nice if they have a bit of a track record. It's one of those things where we always talk a little bit about accomplishments. My concern with doing that is sometimes it almost makes it seem like we are, like our value as humans are based on how big our business is or how many doors we have or whatever. And that is so far from the truth. It's just not, it should go without saying, but I think you get what I'm saying. And there's probably many of you sitting here tonight that have a business, but it might be a smaller business than Jake has, or maybe you've been investing and you have a lot less units than Ezra has. And maybe you're 23, or maybe you're 33 or 43 or 63, and it can feel like, I guess I never want it to feel like it's a condemning feeling because you haven't accomplished what these guys have, right? totally not what I would want to have happen. Hopefully, this is something that can be inspiring, and it's also super important to understand that we aren't all called to do the same thing. Some of us in the room are going to be employees working at a place all our lives, and there is nothing wrong with that, okay? Just wanted to clear that up because sometimes it feels like we put a lot of emphasis on certain accomplishments, and that is not what I want it to feel like our value as people is tied to. All right? Make sense? So with that, why don't we start? Jake, you can take 4 or 5 minutes, whatever, and just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started with the business.
Okay.
Sit down. Well, you do whatever you want.
All right. Do you mind if I stand?
I don't.
All right.
No, you do whatever you want.
I was very honored when Jake asked me to speak tonight, and I'm glad to be here. I know that I could just stand up here and, I guess, try to tell you guys how I became successful, but I don't think that would really be authentic and quite the exact truth, because I know there's a lot of very successful people, a lot more successful than me in this room, which intimidates me a little bit, but I'm going to try to provide you with some value by just sharing my experiences. Yeah, I'm from Dauphin County. I started my business when I was 21. First of all, I was working pretty much every evening and every weekend doing side jobs until the spring of 2019 is when I seen, okay, I got 3 weeks of work ahead of me, and I think I'm just going to do a full send. So I had 3 weeks of work. I called my friend Timmy and said, you want to work with me? He's, let's do it. We got 3 weeks of work. We did a full send and never turned back from there. So the first year we were out pretty much just doing concrete work. It was just me and him until that fall. We had an opportunity to work with Quality Buildings. They were building some cottage houses, about 40, 50 cottage houses. And we got this big opportunity to work with them, so we had about 4 or 5 months of work. So I went out and hired about 5, 6 guys. Actually, I think it was about 7, 8. Thanks to actually my friend Johnny, who got us connected, and that's how everything started. So I started hiring employees, and the more employees I hired, the more work I got, and that's how we started. But right now in 2024, yeah, we have a total of about 20 people on our team, and we are specializing in outdoor living spaces, custom garages, custom additions, and we actually just started this year. We want to start a division doing painting and staining as well. Yeah, that's where we're at right now, and a little bit of, I guess, what inspired me to get into business is I've always just wanted to do more. I remember as a kid I would pick produce out of my mom's garden and sell it, and I would hire my little siblings like a couple cents to help me pick, and then we'd go sell it out at the road. I raised rabbits when I was younger too, so I always liked business. I just loved it, so I decided to get started. So here we are. That's pretty much all I have to share of how we got started.
Yeah, that's great. Ezra, tell us a bit about how you got started and the journey to where you are now.
Yep, definitely. My name's Ezra Smucker. I do want to shout out Ben Esh for sure, because he's the one that got me started, and Chris Good. If you guys want to connect with Chris and Ben Esh, if you don't own any properties and you want to buy your first investment property and you're 19, you're 20, whatever, get connected with those guys. And then Jeff, I haven't worked with Jeff, but he's a hard money lender. And then Dave Wolf, who also sponsors this, is a hard money lender. And Dave Wolf funded every one of my deals, and I probably did 25 deals, buy and hold and sell. So Dave Wolf funded every one of the deals that I wanted to buy, 100% funding. So there's some good connections we have here that are sponsoring this event. So definitely utilize that. But yes, my journey of how I got started, I'll start when I was 15. I started working construction, building custom homes as a mud boy, and did a lot of different things. I learned a lot. So we built custom homes from start to finish on probably like $500,000 to $800,000 homes. And then 17, I became foreman of the gutter crew, and that's when I realized, I was like, if I'm becoming in charge of telling people what to do, then I should probably go on my own. This is not good. So anyway, 18 rolled around, I decided to go self-employed, and I started my own business. It was very just small scale, working for other bigger contractors as a sub. And then 18, I decided to take a break. I did a DTS with YWAM, Youth with a Mission, in Australia. So I left in 2018 in the fall, and I've spent 6 months in Australia and 3 months over there, and then 3 months in Papua New Guinea and Sri Lanka. So I got some experience outside of the world that here, the first world country. Yes, there's still third world parts of our, like in Harrisburg, it's crazy. It's like I go to a third world country and I come back and I go to Harrisburg and you drive down the street and you're like, this is just like it was over there, okay? But yeah, then that leads me to like coming back. I started my business, started like Equitable Builds, started branding it and started like doing work, and I was like, I'm gonna flip houses, and I had no experience. I bought my first house, Benio. I was working for Benio at the time as a subcontractor. This was back in 2019, so I worked for Benio for about 3 or 4 months, and then I decided I'm just going to move to Harrisburg, and I'm full sending it, and that's what I did. Benio helped me buy my first deal, and a little story on my first deal is it was a 2-unit building in Harrisburg in a great neighborhood, uptown Harrisburg, near Italian Lake, and it was in December of 2019, and this deal was on the market for quite some time, and I was looking for 6 months. I was trying to find a deal to buy. Couldn't find anything. I didn't know what to look for either. I was like listening to Bigger Pockets and reading books. And it was like, I need help talking to people, and I didn't know what to do. But Benio was like, Benio, I'm so tired of looking at houses. We need to buy something. This has to be the one. And he's, yeah, let's put an offer in at 20 grand lower. And I was like, as long as we get it, and then I'm fine. And sure enough, we did get it though. We put an offer in 20 grand. Below asking price. It was on the market for quite some time, and it was 1 vacant unit, termite damage. Everyone wants to run from that kind of stuff, but it was simple fix, very simple. But yeah, so that's my story, how I got started, and so yeah.
That's great. And I think one of the reasons I'm so fascinated by your story is, and this kind of goes back to what I said earlier, we're not all called to do the same thing. So I've been in this business for quite a while. I flipped a bunch of houses back after I had gotten started full time, which was 12, 13 years ago. And I never built a team. I never hired a crew. I never did all that. It just didn't appeal to me. It didn't feel like, I don't know, I just didn't really want the responsibility of building a team, hiring employees and all of that. So many different ways to do it. But I think that's one of the reasons I'm just fascinated by both of your stories, to launch in that young and that quick, build a team, hire employees, and just get into the game. So I think it's great. Ezra, I don't know the answer to this, but hopefully you don't mind me asking, but did you do a bunch of house hacking, or are you still? Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Yeah. And maybe even describe what house hacking is for those that don't know.
Sure. Yeah, so pretty much like when I moved back from Australia, I moved out of my parents' house like 3 months after that. And since then I've been living out. And I moved to Lancaster. I was renting a house for a couple months and paying $700 for that. That's, for me at that point, that was a lot. But now, like, that was cheap rent. But I wanted to figure out a solution of how can I live in a house and not pay any rent or have the mortgage covered. Listen to Bigger Pockets podcast. House hacking is basically where you would buy a 3-bedroom house and you have friends that want to rent from you, or people that you know from church. Most likely you want people that you know, because you don't want a bunch of people living in your house you don't really know, and then you don't have a safe space really to where you can relax. But yeah, so house hacking, buy a house, 3 bedrooms. The more bedrooms the better, because the more people can pile in. Again, make sure they're good friends though. Make sure they have parties and all that. But like when I first moved, then I ever since 2019 I've been living rent free. So I lived on a cot for a little bit of time. That was during COVID. That was in 2020, so I moved in with one of my friends at their house, and I said, hey, can I just put a cot in the corner and I'll sleep there, and I slept in the cot. And then I moved out, and then I was in the middle of flipping a house, and it was like at the end of March, middle of March, so right beside when COVID just happened. And I was having a tough time with that because codes weren't coming out and doing inspections because it was COVID, no one knew what was going on. So I just did a few rooms, and then I moved into that. And then I've completed it, and it was going to be a flip project, but I completed it. I was able to refi, get my money out, and then I rented a room out to one of my best friends. And then it was like my mortgage on that was like $100. It's very, like, nowadays you can barely get that. but he was paying like $600. So it wasn't quite covering the cost, but not a big deal. Then a year later, he moved out, and I decided to sell the house, and I happened to make $90,000 profit. That was straight profit, because when I did the rehab, I did most of the work, but I had a $50,000 budget to rehab the house. And then to this day, I still house hack, and I love it. I have 3 housemates right now, and again, I live in Camp Hill area, and the house, I bought it for $95. I put $40 into it, and the bank appraised it for $190, and my mortgage is like $800, a little $850, and then I have taxes and insurance, another couple $100 per month, and I rent 3 rooms out, one for $590, and that's like pretty cheap for a room, so you can't beat that. And then we split utilities. So that's a little bit about what we do, what I do for house hacking, and I live rent free.
It's great. It's a pretty neat concept. And you can also do that with even a multi-unit. You can buy a 2-unit, buy a 3-unit, get good financing for owner-occupied properties, whatever. So I love that concept. Jake, on our phone conversation a week ago, whatever it was, I forget exactly how you worded this, but you said something to the effect of, we're just talking about the challenges of growing a business. And you said something to the effect of, if you would have known how hard it's going to be, you absolutely would not have done it. And yet, looking back, seeing where you are and looking back, it was worth it. Do I have that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I usually tell people that if I would have known what I was getting myself into when I started my business, I would have never started, because I would have just been overwhelmed with fear of what I was all going to go through. But now looking back 5 years later and seeing the dots connect and how things all came along, I'm so glad that I did start my business. So I like to think of it this way, even if everything fails now, I can start with experience. And that experience, nobody can take away. Nothing, not even the economy, can rob that from me. So I'm very glad I did. It was a fun experience. It is a fun experience, and yeah, I'm enjoying it. That's at the Alliance Network group the other weekend. You mentioned something about the 10-year thing. You can't really see yourself in 10 years, or what you want to achieve in 10 years looks overwhelming. But still, if you look back 10 years and see how far you've came, it's wow. Step-by-step processes are simpler than we think. Yeah.
That's good. Ezra, you've done a couple of, you've done some interesting projects. Reservoir Park project in Harrisburg, right? That really puts you on the map up there.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear a little bit about that. And then also, I don't know if this is an appropriate question or not, but so it's a 2-part thing. So the Reservoir Park project, and then also working with Harrisburg code officials. I think I probably have seen some of your stuff on social media where you have had some interesting experience with code officials. And my question is not directed towards talking bad about inspectors, and I think you know that. It's more of the reality of some of those challenges and how you navigate them.
But yeah, in the end of 2022 or middle of 2022, we won a contract with the city of Harrisburg. We were the prime contractors. There was Steelworks was the general contractor, and our scope was about $500,000. It was build a playground for the city of Harrisburg on Reservoir Park in close to Allison Hill area, so it's not that great of a neighborhood, but it's not bad. So we got this contract. It was $500,000, the biggest contract I've ever got. I was 22 years old, and I was like, a $500,000 contract. This is crazy. I was like, how am I going to complete it? But anyway, we got it done.
Wouldn't you ask that before you get the contract?
No, so you always just don't worry about completing it. You first get the deal, get the contract, then you figure out how you're going to complete it. Because guess what? There's always someone out there that's going to help you complete it. So that's how I look at it. So we got the deal, and it was a very challenging one because it was one-of-a-kind park built on a hill, on a massive, the site was just miserable to work on, and we had to do a lot of concrete work, sidewalks, curbs, it was crazy stuff. I've never done curbs in my life, but you don't need to know how to do it. You can sell the job and hire people to do the job, right? That's how that works. Hey, if you want to get started, you just got to go for it. That's how I got started in buying real estate. I had literally no idea how to do it, and I was like, I could fill. I don't know. I don't even know if that's possible. But anyway, we got that contract, and I was able to complete it. There was bumps in the road with hiring people. I hired some people, and it was a prevailing wage job, so it was a high-paying job. And those people are rough and ready. It's like kind of union, right? I had some interesting experience with employees that I hired, just like getting pushed around, and they like get upset that a young kid's winning his jobs and telling them what to do probably. I don't know. But at the end of the day, we got it done, and got to meet the mayor and got to see 300 kids playing on it on opening day. It's like, holy cow. This is amazing. Like, this is why kids were laughing, having fun. And so it's called Chutes and Ladders Park in Harrisburg. Google it. It's pretty amazing. But yeah, so we did that. And then your second question was?
So a quick comment on that. So I can't help but wonder how much it helped you with the fact that you're 6'3" or whatever you are. Anyway, side note. Second question was Harrisburg City Code officials.
So yeah, and then since we do a lot of work in the city of Harrisburg, that's primarily what we focus on is renovating, restoring the city of Harrisburg. So all of our projects, all of our rentals are in the city of Harrisburg. And like, why did I get started there? I don't really know. When I got started there, I just wanted to buy something. But to this day, I do know why I'm there is because I want to transform our city. Like Lancaster City 10 years ago, I don't know what it looked like, but I heard stories. And you could probably ask people that have been in Lancaster 10 years ago or 15 years ago. It was probably like Harrisburg. Maybe not quite as bad, but really, my end of the day, my goal is to make Harrisburg better than Lancaster. Got a little bit of way to go, but hey, we'll get it done. By doing that, is we're gonna buy houses, we're gonna buy blocks, and we're gonna renovate and restore houses, and then we're gonna either rent them out, sell them, whatever we got to do to renovate and restore our city. We bought 10 or so houses on this one block. I own 6 of them still yet, and I have 3 with a partner on that block. But we did 10 or 15 on that block because my partner owns 8 or 9 on that block as well. So we own like maybe 10 or 15 on that block. And then we even got the city involved to come out and help us with cleaning up the alleyways. So like we got them involved. Public Works Department came out. They brought dumpsters. They brought manpower on a Saturday. And we hosted a cleanup event. And we cleaned up the alleyways. And we put flyers out for everyone in that block. Hey, if you have mattresses, TVs, anything that's big and bulky, bring it out. We'll throw it away for you for free. And the city paid for that, right? So the city gave us like 10 of the public servant employees came, and they brought dumpsters, and we got a lot done in 5 hours. So all we got to do is keep doing block by block, or just maybe one house. It seems like it's going to take forever, but just get one house. So a little bit on the codes. They don't really like me because I push back on a lot of stuff. I don't know it all, but I know some of the codes, and in some of these code enforcements, they've been doing it for like all their life. And they think they know it all. They have the ego, and they're like, in my opinion, this is how it should be. But your opinion doesn't matter in this situation. It's what's the code. Because he'll be like, my opinion is this. I don't care about your opinion. Tell me what the code is. And he was like, I'll be like, here, I'll pull up my phone, Google the code, and be like, this is what it says. And they don't like that. Automatically, I'm on their shit list because like literally, they're always talking about me. They'll put stop work orders on my properties just for no reason. There's a slight reason, but I can't tell you that. It's interesting navigating those things, but now it's like you deal with it. And at the end of the day, codes only cost you more money. That's the only thing that really does. And then you try to save money as real estate investors. We try to save money because we need to save money. But yeah. So they'll make you do firewall, make you do all these stupid stuff. Firewall's great. In Harrisburg, 2 years ago, I think there was like a few kids that died because there was no firewall. Firewall is important, and there's things that are important, but then his opinions aren't important. If you deal with them every day, you're going to give them pushback. That's what I do.
So Jake, a couple questions for you here pertaining to a recent Facebook post that you put out. And this kind of goes back to, I'm impressed with the business that you've built at a young age and all of that, but I'm more impressed by who I see you growing into as a person. You're involved with, what's Dave Kaufman's mastermind group called? Warrior Minded. So a high-level group that you're a part of. Yeah. You guys do like quarterly events or something like that.
That's correct.
And so after you came back from one of those events a couple of weeks ago, you put on a Facebook post with some takeaways. Yeah. And it was all of the things were good, but there was a couple on that list that I thought were really good nuggets, and there's two that I'm going to ask you to expound on a little bit. The first one, the note that you made was a tree's fruitfulness is not for the tree, the same as your purpose in life is not for you. It's about serving others.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I heard that on in our latest event here, and that just really stuck to me. I was like, wow, I just never looked at it like that before. And you know how the scripture often, says how the human life is like a tree. And it also says to be fruitful and multiply and have dominion. So yeah, what I've learned through that is the tree's fruitfulness is not for the tree, the same as our life purpose is not for us. A tree is first a tiny seed, and it goes through all the hurdles into becoming what it's supposed to be. And that's a big tree. What does a big tree do? It does nothing but serve. It gives shade. It provides fruit, provides a positive vibe to the atmosphere, and cleans the air, all that good stuff. So once it is what it's supposed to be, it does nothing but serve. And I think that's what our life should be like too. Like, we should have big goals and big visions. That way when we become what we are to become, we have a lot to give. And a fruit is something which contains its own seed. A tree, it's a seed, and it grows up and it gives fruit, and which that also has seeds. Long after that tree is gone, all those years that it served, its seed, its legacy it still has an effect in the world, the same as our life can. So long after we're gone, like when we grow up to be what we are, to be what we're supposed to be, give all that we can give, sow good seeds, and after we're gone, our legacy will continue and ripple through eternity. So that was very interesting. I learned a lot from that point of view. I thought it was good.
I love that concept. The second thing that I'd like you to talk about a little bit is ask yourself, how would the person I'd like to become do the thing that I'm about to do?
Yeah.
How would the person, ask yourself, when you're about to do something, ask yourself, how would the person that I'd like to become, not the person I am now, but the person I would like to become, do what I'm about to do?
Yeah. Yeah, that was another good takeaway I had there. And that's something I heard before too. And it's also the same as thinking from your vision. Now, how would the person do the thing I'm about to, or how would the person I'd like to become do the thing I'm about to do? Same as thinking from your vision. Like I have a vision. I know who I want to be. So if we think from our vision, and we always ask ourselves, how would the person I'd like to become do this thing? I think we respond differently to our current circumstances. We can pull ourselves out of the mess and respond from this wise man that we want to come, or respond from, hey, I got this vision I'm working towards. This has no effect on me. So it's pulling ourselves out of the mess. Instead of reacting in the mess, we respond from a place of our vision.
I love that. That's great. I do expect to have time for Q&A at the end, but any burning questions right now? Eli, Jake, how do you effectively manage 20 people?
Sometimes, yes. But the truth is, I don't always manage 20 people. Sometimes I'm managing a few, and they're managing others, and they're managing others. I don't really feel like I'm managing 20 people every day, but it is challenging. I have learned a lot through the years, and one of the things that I have really learned to be powerful is to go deeper with my people in leadership. It's something I just started doing about 6 months ago, and I let them know about it. I said, guys, I'm overwhelmed. We are gonna spend more time together, and we are gonna become this tight leadership team. We're gonna work together, and you guys are gonna go out and impact your crews and the customers. So yeah, I'm just investing a lot more time into my leaders. That's what I want to do. We want to have a breakfast sometime here soon, and I'll probably take them out to golf and just spend time with my project managers and my foremans. So yeah, that's one of the ways.
It's a good question, Eli. Anybody else right now? Kevin?
You mentioned different divisions. Is that just
Repeat the question.
Yeah. Can you repeat that question? Yeah. Yeah, so right now the only division is the painting and staining one, and we're just about to, we actually haven't even started yet, but we have everything legal in the works, the LLC and stuff and the insurance for it. But all of the other stuff, that's all under the same LLC. It's just different crews. Like some crews are very good at decks, some crews are very good at, and other crews are very good at doing the framing. So yeah. Does that answer your question? We do trade people around a lot more than what we would like and a lot more than what is efficient sometimes, but the way the economy is now, it's hard to pick and choose work, and we're picking up whatever we can here and there. So there's been a lot of shuffling around, and it does make it hard. But all the employees understand what we're going through right now, and I think they're willing to work with us. But if we have a steady stream of work in our busy seasons, there's more of this crew's dedicated to that, and that crew's dedicated to that, and so on. Yep.
Anybody else for now? This is a good question to ask along with Eli's question about the same as managing employees, whatever. This question actually came from Isaiah. Isaiah is currently living in Florida, and he had messaged me today, and he said I should ask you guys, what do you look for in a person? What do you look for when you're hiring people? What do you look for when you're looking to bring in a player onto your team?
That's a very good question. What do I look for when I'm looking to bring an A player on the team? I would say the first thing is, one of the questions I usually ask them is, why should I hire you? And depending on the answer to that, I can usually tell. But that's not what I base everything off of. But if their enthusiasm is good and you can see that they have interest in the company. If they're just there because, hey, I'm looking for a job. For an example, there's a guy that called me the other day, and he's, hey, I just moved in the area, and I moved in from, I'm not sure where it was, Oklahoma or whatever, and I'm checking around. I called 30 other businesses, and I'm like, it was just another guy that I was calling. I was just another guy that he was calling for a job. So right off the bat, I was like, that's not a good hire. So I want somebody to come specifically to me and be like, I want to be a part of this company. That's one of the things I like to see.
What do you look for, Ezra?
Yeah, I have 6 employees, but when I hire, I'm looking for someone. For us in the city of Harrisburg, we do a lot more construction management. We have people that do the work as well. But for me, I'm looking for someone that can communicate. We need good, clear communication. That can be every way. Texting, emails, phone call, language. What kind of language are you using for, let's put rubber on this roof? Or what kind of terminology are you using for all these things? So we're looking for, one of the biggest things would be communication. That plays a big part in whether the people underneath them or the subcontractors that are completing the work can get it done or understand how to get it done. Because some terminology could be wrong, and they're like, it said this, that's what, they did that, right? Clear communication is what we look for.
You might want to look for someone that's good with dealing with code officials that the code officials actually like.
Probably not. I'll deal with that.
Another question for you, Ezra. Along those lines, in our phone conversation, we're talking about the panel. You mentioned about, I think you said you were up to 12 employees at one point, and you scaled back to currently 6 because you wanted to build better systems, foundations, and stuff. And I found that interesting because, I'll let you speak into it, but for most of us, that's a hard step to take, right? We're growing a business, things are moving, and whether we try to or not, I don't know, we tend to label ourselves and other people by how many employees we have and all of that. What was that process like for you to scale back from 12 employees to 6?
Yeah, so in like middle of last year, more like early spring, we had 12 employees, and it was like we weren't getting as much work done as we should have been getting done. And so you have 12 people, you should be getting twice as much work done than what you were getting done previously. And it was just, for me, it was too stressful because I needed more managers in place versus what we had, one manager and me. So I needed more people in place to manage the people. Especially, again, a lot of us come from a good work ethic background, but in Harrisburg, it's hard to find them. And they're out there, but it's hard to find the people that are going to do whatever it takes to get the job done, not complain or not put in, not just say I hurt my foot on 2 steps of a ladder and then call for work for 2 weeks, and then you got to navigate that. Or they could be on salary, and that's what happened. And that did happen to me. I had a project manager that was on salary, and he said he like twisted his ankle stepping down from a ladder 2 steps, and he said he was fine. He said he was fine, but I should have reported it anyway, but I didn't. And then I decided then a couple weeks later, I decided I was going to fire him because he wasn't performing. And then I fired him, sent him a termination letter, and he was all upset. And then he filed a claim, and then we went through it with a lawsuit, and he got $20,000 out of it. But anyway, so that's like, you know, sometimes you're better off with less people because you can get more done with less people. That's why it's important to build systems and things in place and really invest in the people that you have on your team at that time. Don't just be like, oh, I want to have 20 people or I want 12 people under me. It sounds cool, right? But really, is it profitable that way? You want to make sure that you're making the most amount of profit. And if you invest in the people, that you have 6 people, and you invest in them, and you still get the amount of work that 12 people do, right? Maybe not quite 12, but then for us, it's like I hire more subcontractors, and then they get paid based off of the work they get done. It's not hourly. So yeah, that's it.
That's good. Along the lines of growing a business, which you guys have obviously been, you're still in the thick of it. Like none of you guys have really been standing still since you started. And you might not have a good answer for this, and if you don't, it's okay. But I'm curious of how you have processed the balance between keeping it simple and keeping your operating costs down versus going all in, hiring office staff, buying big equipment and all of that. Because to me, there'd be this tension there. Does that make sense? Can you speak into that a bit?
Yeah, so you're asking how we navigate like keeping our overhead costs down, but still putting in the right systems and structure.
But where I'm coming from is, how do you make the decisions? You're going all in. We already know that.
Yeah.
But how was that process for you to take those leaps and bounds? Because obviously you started a lot smaller, your overhead is low, but then when you make those bigger commitments and you have more employees, more equipment, all of that, it's a big step.
Yeah.
And it's a little easier to, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I can speak into that a little bit. So if I would start again, I would definitely do some things differently because I have hurt myself a lot. And we're going through some rough waters right now too, just because of some systems and structure and financial planning and all that wasn't done when it should have been. So when we went all in it was 2019 and 2020, right before COVID and after COVID, like we were so busy. I didn't have to worry about marketing or systems or anything. I wasn't worried about any of that. I was just going for it. How many people can I hire and how big can this thing get? We're all in, full send. But then later in the years, I started realizing this is becoming quite a mess. We have to put systems in place. We have to put structure in place. We have to put budgeting in place, financial planning, or nothing is going to work. And as the economy is down right now, so we didn't, with not having a financial plan in place and those systems and structure back then, trying to figure that out now with trying to get work is difficult. But yeah, I remember when I started, like the first 3 years when I started, so after the first year I had 3 crews and I was out working on the field maybe a little less than half the time. I was project managing and selling for 3 crews. And I could easily sell and do all that and keep 3 crews busy. But now I find myself spending all of my time in sales and estimating. I'm permitting too, but sales and estimating. I got to put a lot more effort into sales and estimating in this time than what I did a couple years ago. And I think what would have been really helpful for me is in those first couple years to focus more on the systems and the structure and the financial planning than how big can I make this thing get for a time like this. And getting a marketing plan together, having a marketing strategy, and just all of that stuff. Because now there's a dip in the economy, and we're trying to figure all of that stuff out in the midst of it. It's some tough going. But
It's interesting.
Yeah.
But of course, when you're in the midst of that, you're just trying to keep after. It's hard to actually stop and put those things in place if you're getting all the jobs you want and cruising right along.
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Ezra, how about you? How was the process, and how is the process even now yet for you as you grow? You had office staff and stuff pretty early on, right?
Yeah, for me, like when I first started, it was just me for the first year, and then I had a subcontractor work beside me for a couple of months, and then I hired somebody, and then I had 3 people, and then I hired an admin. But really, my business was built more or less on flipping homes and renovating homes, buying and selling and flipping. That's why I started my business. And then the neighbors were like, we need this done here. And I was like, we'll give you a price. And we gave them a price. And then we would start doing work for all the neighbors in every house we worked at pretty much. And so it's just, I was like, and then soon, and I don't want to like boast or anything, but our brand was like really good. It happened, and it was all God's like God gave me that vision to do it that way. And so like it was done well, and it didn't cost me much to make the brand, and it was like, and it just, everything flowed. And then so like our brand like in Harrisburg is pretty recognizable, so that everyone would know, a lot of people would know us and see our like trucks and our signs. They were like, oh. And then so originally we weren't really planning on working for other people. We're just going to do our own stuff and try to buy and sell, fix and flip, and everything to do with real estate. But then I realized that I needed, so I was in the middle of flipping houses, and I didn't have any, when I first got started, I had, like the first year, I was like, oh, I bought my first house, and then a month later I bought another house, and I refinanced the first one. I made $5,000 cash out refi. I was like, dang, that's a lot of money for me, you know, because like I bought my first deal and I had $2,000 in my account. Again, I had nothing to lose, right? I was single, and I lived at home with my parents, and I just moved out. But it's like, at the end of the day, I had nothing to lose. I could always move back in with my parents if I would lose everything. And Dave Wolf believed in me and gave me 100% funding for the whole thing, right? So at closing, I got a $1,000 check back when I closed on it, because they never deposited the escrow money. So thankfully it never came out of my account. But anyway, that's how I got started. And then, you know, from there, like everything, nothing like was given to me, like not a cent. Like I had to work like for everything. My parents didn't give me a dime, right? So it was all built from buying and selling real estate, and because I had no money when I started, you know? So like, how do you start a business with no money? And I don't recommend it to anybody because it's pretty stressful. But if you're up for a challenge and you have nothing to lose except for maybe be humiliated if you fail, that's fine, then freaking do it, right? So for budgeting wise, like when I first started off, it was just like I had really like, I just no idea what I'm doing. Never ran a business before, never started anything. 19 years old, thinking I could do something, right? And I was okay with failure, and you have to be okay with failure. So, yeah. That's
good. Would love to hear from each of you guys a little bit. Again, this might be hard to come up with a real good answer, but think a little bit, tell us a little bit about what you have learned about working with people. You both, whether it's city officials, whether it's employees, whatever, you guys work with a lot of people on a regular basis. So what would be some of the biggest things that you have learned just from working with people?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things that I've learned working with people is you have to connect with what inspires them and then give them opportunity to thrive in that.
Wow.
I can tell a lot of stories about how I've came up with plans even to my leaders or to my teams and be like, guys, we're going to implement this and it's going to be so great and we're going to go off the charts and this is going to be awesome. And they just look at me like, with no expression. I'm like, are you guys excited about this? Sometimes as a business owner, I think I have really good ideas, but if it's not connecting with them, it's probably not going to work. And it's not going to move the company forward. Working with people, if you want to move your company forward, you have to connect with what inspires them. And I would say as far as leadership, training people, Dave Coffin taught me this, the tell them, show them, watch them, and then let them go and be their biggest fan. So first you tell them to do something, watch them do it. Tell them and then show them how to do it, and then watch them do it, provide correction if necessary, or praise. Some people really thrive on recognition and praise. So you got to know what your people need, But once they got it, once they know how to do the thing, stop looking over their shoulder. Just let them go and be their biggest fan.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. How about you, Ezra?
Can you say that question again?
What's some of the biggest things that you've learned about working with people?
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer. I really don't know. I'm still learning, right? Because I by no means have it figured out, and I figure things out as I go, and so I don't know how to answer that question.
That's fine. I think I love Jake's answer, so we can just piggyback off of that one. Okay. If you don't, it's completely fine. But if you guys have questions for each other, or if you just have, whether it's a funny story or something that you think the people should know, go for it now or later.
Yeah, So I've known Jakey for a long time. Well, we known of each other, but we haven't talked much. Rumspringa maybe here and there. Got drunk a few times, partied it up. But anyway, that's in the past.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he started his business. We haven't talked in probably like 4 years, something like that.
Yeah,
and occasionally
probably.
he would shot me a text like, "Hey, do you want to do this for me?" or something like that. Or shot me an email. But then we recently actually just got connected again because of architect that got it connected us again. Well, you recommended me to do something for the architect, and then I was like, "Hey, can you bid this job for me?" And he happens to be bidding the same job, but I don't know how that's going to go yet. I'll probably just give it to him.
Yeah, we're actually bidding against each other right now on a job.
I'll probably
so
just
it's
allow
going to
him.
get exciting.
I'll just let him to take the job. How about that? So, but Jakey has 20 employees, and I'm like, dang, he's killing it, and I'm intimidated by him. And so I'm like, how can I do what he's doing? He's doing all these crazy outdoor living spaces, $200,000 outdoor living spaces and stuff like that, $400,000. And so, yeah, maybe I'm stretching the 400, but 200 at least easily on some of these projects. And he's doing outdoor living, some nice, bougie outdoor living spaces. So I'm just like, I want to do what he's doing, and I want to be where he's at. I'm over here doing rentals, and so not this high class stuff. But anyway, that's a side story.
Yeah, so I'm just going to add to that a little bit too. So this was crazy. We just met the other day, again, got reconnected while we're estimating against each other on this job. So we actually went out to lunch we had lunch with each other after that. And I looked at him and told him that I'm admiring his success and that I'm actually intimidated by him because I've seen what he's doing, and just I felt the same way about Ezra. So it was funny. I was intimidated by him, was really admiring his success, and came to find out that he felt the same way about me. So
I think the grass always looks greener on the other side. So you could be doing X, Y, and Z over here and thriving and it looks good, and it is good, and I could be over here doing the same thing. And you got to pick your niche of what you're good at or what you do. So you can diversify if you want, but again, it may look good to one person, and you're killing it just what you're doing. Make sure you find what your niche is and kill it.
in fact, Ezra inspired me so much, I asked him if I could purchase a session from him. So
I said it's free.
let's go.
Got one more question for you, and a bunch more if we need them, but I'm going to get some questions from the group after this question. So what motivates you to do what you do?
What motivates me to do what I do?
I realize it's a broad question,
Yeah.
but yeah, what motivates you? What inspires you to build the business?
Yeah. I guess one way I can answer that is I dream of an organization where, people within it can wake up inspired and excited about their day and feel safe and have a purpose, feel wanted. And then at the end of the day, feel fulfilled by the work that they do. Waking up inspired and feeling fulfilled. Another thing that motivates me is I want to become all that I can be. God tells us that he's not going to give us more than what we can handle. I want to make my container be able to handle a lot, grow my capacity. Yeah, and also, I want to sow good seeds, so that motivates me. The future, my vision really motivates me. Yeah, nothing really other than that specifically, but there's a lot of things that motivate me.
What about you, Ezra? What motivates you?
So for me, I'd definitely say, so my vision again is to renovate, restore the city of Harrisburg. And so every day my vision is to get the city better than Lancaster. It's not a competition, but at the end of the day, and really my vision may never be fulfilled, and so that's fine. My kids could take on with it if they want, but I think we will get the city of Harrisburg back to prospering, but you have to get different leaders in there and different stuff like that, and politics are going to be involved and all those things, right? But at the end of the day, really to see the Harrisburg renovated and restored, like the streets, no more potholes in like 13th Street and Allison Hill, like we need to get rid of all the third world country vibes up there. Just get rid of them. And end of the day is really to renovate, restore, and then also to motivate other people, because guess what? I can't do this by myself. I need everyone in this room to buy a house in Harrisburg. You might be bidding against me, but guess what? It's okay. Because I can't do it on my own, and we need everybody in this room. What I want to see is I want to see other people invest in our area. So that's what motivates me. I want to see Harrisburg restored. So
I love that. Questions for these guys?
Yeah.
So the best that you can, repeat the question for the sake of the Facebook Live. That was a lot, so you might have to ask him. But
Yeah. So you're asking, what do I do to attract the ideal employee? Correct. That's the question. First of all, you said it. We want to attract them. You can't go out there and just get it. You have to attract them. They have to be attracted to what you're doing. But I think number one is building the culture and spending time with your people. Building culture. Oops. We good? We're good. It takes a lot of time to invest in your people to build culture, and your leadership team is what determines your company's success. So invest in them as much as you can. One thing I really find that's fascinating, and it really works, and this is, giving honor to each other within your leadership. And this is scripture too. This is one place where the scripture tells us that we can outdo each other, or try to outdo each other, is in showing honor and giving each other honor. I think it's Romans 12:10. It says something about show each other, love each other, and outdo each other in honor. So yeah, honor. If there's gossip, cut it out as soon as you can. We've had a couple times where I'm starting to find out for this guy and this. Good. Yeah, so a couple times just finding out there's gossip going around, like just being open about it. Hey guys, we're absolutely not going to be able to do this. It's not going to work. Like instead of, shoot each other down, build each other up. So practice on just honoring each other, and if there's gossip, stop it, because it's going to poison your culture.
more questions? Eli, yeah, go ahead, Eli.
Yeah, so actually a former employee, repeat the question. How did I get connected with building 3 Taco Bells? Yeah, a former employee of ours, his name is DJ. I'm not sure if he's here tonight or not. I think he was planning on being here tonight. Anyway, his pop built a Dunkin' Donuts, I think, in the same town. This contractor coming from Wisconsin was asking the area, okay, where are these contractors at, and who do I get? And he found out who built this Dunkin' Donuts, that it was my former employee's dad, who had his own construction company. So he reached out to him. His dad said, no, I don't want it, but my son works for this company. So he brought that in, and we went with it, and then from there it was a relationship, so it just continued. Yeah.
That's great. Somebody right behind Eli had a question there. I think the first part of the question is, do you ever feel like you're underqualified or not qualified to do something, and how do you deal with that?
Oh, yes.
Is that accurate? Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good question, and yes, I do, probably every day. I got to muster up the courage every day and read inspirational things, pray. One prayer that I really love and go to all the time is, Lord, give me the wisdom to do the things that you put me on this earth to do in a way that pleases you and serves the people you put me here to serve. That prayer always makes me feel better. And yeah, just go to him for your strength and courage. And he tells us that we are to be courageous. I think being courageous and taking risk and going out there is also being obedient to him. Yeah, I deal with, imposter syndrome every day.
Ezra, how would you answer that one?
Similar is I do stuff that I have no idea what I'm doing, and you navigate that. Be honest with whoever you're working with or whatever you're doing. Is I don't know what I'm doing, but I provide solutions. That's what I do. You can have, it's depending on how you view it. It sucks to fail and it sucks to not always know the answer to stuff, but you can just be honest with the people you're working with, or whoever's working with you. You don't know, but you're going to find a solution. You're going to provide them with a solution. That's really, at the end of the day, my job is to provide solutions for like everything, because we go in business to solve problems for people, and if you're a landlord, you got to solve problems all the time. So.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Somebody else over in that area had a question? Maybe not. Somebody else? I got a couple more here. So this could be a pretty quick one, pretty simple, but you guys have both experienced like massive growth in the last 4 to 5 years. If you could point to one or two things that have been the biggest contributors to that, what would it be?
I would say,
I think you keep pressing the button or something.
are we good?
No, take this one again.
All right. I'll stop pressing the button. Yeah, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought now. The question was, what is one of the things that would have contributed to the growth?
Correct.
Yeah. I would say one of them is not being afraid to fail. Ezra was saying earlier, if I lose it all, I can go back and live with my parents. I still live with my parents. So I really got nothing to lose. And just coming from that place of I got nothing to lose helps me to just go all in without the fear of failure. I still have fear of failure, but it's very little. Of course, we don't want to fail, but I would say that's one of the things. It helps me to be courageous and studying. I would say another thing is studying people and studying leadership. Yeah.
So for that answer or question, I would say more or less financially, like how did it get successful? Is if I wouldn't have done real estate deals, I probably would have went out of business because it was too hard. I would have chose to go back, and everybody wants to start a business, and they look at how easy it is. They're like, the boss is over there doing, I don't know what he's doing anyway. He's probably just doing nothing all day long. And so they think that could be in your mind, because when I was 17, I had no idea what my boss was doing. We're going out and doing all these jobs, and you're like, do the calculations. You're like, oh, he must be making bank, right? But then you don't think about payroll taxes. You don't think about all these things. But really, like for me, at the end of the day, if I wouldn't have been buying and selling some real estate, because I made mistakes early on, and that cost me money, and real estate basically bailed me out. So that you just gotta, for that, yeah, just that was how I was able to get to where I'm at. If I would not have done real estate, I'd still be maybe 1-2 man and one vehicle. But it's not about how much stuff you have. Yeah, that's my answer.
Any daily habits or disciplines that you guys have that you want to share with the group?
Yeah, so one thing that I have learned just like from doing my work, so in my first couple of years of business, my days were so scattered. Like I didn't work from a to-do list. I just went by the seat of my pants, and it was like, let's go from when we wake up until 12 o'clock at night or whatever. But what I started doing first is, and I do this always, every day, I have a filled out to-do list pretty much for all day the night before. And that's just become a habit. I always do that. The night before, either before I leave the office or after dinner when I get home, that to-do list is done before I go to bed. So I wake up with a to-do list, and I always put all of my tasks that are most hard first in the morning, like estimating, writing up proposals, and all of the hard tasks that take a lot of focus and time. I do those in the mornings. That's when my mind is the clearest and I'm the most productive. And then afternoons, I schedule to go meet clients. I will never schedule an appointment with a client unless it's like nothing else works for him or it just worked. But I will always schedule my appointments with my clients from 12 o'clock after, and I focus my time in the office doing the important things in the morning.
How about you, Ezra? Any daily disciplines, habits that you feel have served you well that you want to share?
I would definitely say when you have rentals, it's a little bit different, but it's clock out. You might run a business, but freaking clock out. Stop. I have 2 different numbers on one phone. Just don't open those messages, and they can wait till tomorrow. If the bank's not open, you don't need to be open, right? Now, if they have an emergency, they're going to contact our emergency number, and obviously we'll take care of it. But so there could be a fire, could be whatever. You have insurance for all that stuff. But honestly, clock out, live a life. That has helped me a lot. Is don't work on the weekends. Yes, in the beginning you have to like put systems in place. You got to work physically hard, but after, if you want to be burnt out, then if you don't want to be burnt out, clock out, take Saturdays off. But otherwise, you're going to get burnt out, and you're gonna be miserable. I would say clock out and clock in, just like everyone else does.
Very interesting. So we'd have time for one or two questions. If somebody thought of a question they'd like to ask, yeah, over here.
Wow, okay. My bad. More because it was
The question was cold
yeah.
plunge. I thought that
Yeah.
might actually come out because I know both of these guys have done some cold plunges. So why do you do that?
Yeah, so why I do cold plunges is, yeah, more to break the mental barrier than to actually get the feeling, like to get the physical feeling. It was more of a mental thing for me than a physical thing. Yeah, but I'm still doing it, still enjoying it, and yeah.
I know Ezra has done that too. What's your reason for doing cold plunges?
I wanted to challenge myself. I don't do much lately because again it's not that cold. But I wanted to do a mental challenge, and like in the beginning, you know, it's like this can't be that hard. You just hop in and you just wait for 3 minutes, but that 3 minutes is forever. And but after a while, it gets a little bit easier, but not much. And for me I get up, I'm like, I'm not doing that. And you basically have to just like, trick your mind and just, okay, I'm going to do it. And you're like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm going to go get ready to go to work. And then you're like, no, I'll just run down and do it real quick, right? It's mental. Yeah, definitely a mental battle.
Yeah, good. One more question for you guys, and we're going to wrap up. So any favorite books or podcasts that you'd like to share with the group?
Yes, one of the books I'm actually reading right now, and it's so fitting for this time that we're in. The book is called The Unfair Advantage by, his name is Aaron Burke, or Aaron Burke. Jonas Stoltzfus gave me the book, and I started reading it. I'm about halfway in, and there's just so much wisdom in that book. It was about a guy that he started a church. The unfair advantage was first he thought life was unfair. He was always the guy with the least resources, but he had the unfair advantage in the end. That's the story behind it.
Yeah, for me, it was definitely Rich Dad, Poor Dad. When I first got started, that was my first book I really listened to, and that kind of motivated me to think more outside the box as well. And so Rich Dad, Poor Dad, 100%, everybody, probably most of the people in this room. If you've read the book, raise your hand. Yeah, so that's a book that you read to get into real estate. And then Is Your Thinking Keeping You Poor by Douglas Kruger. That has helped me with my mindset because I did not have an abundant mindset. Money was barely talked about when I grew up. I never wrote a check in my life until I started a business, right? And I didn't know how to reconcile anything. Nowadays you do it with QuickBooks, but you don't need to do it manually. Is Your Thinking Keeping You Poor by Douglas Kruger, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. That's another book that probably half the room has read. And then, of course, Bigger Pockets podcast. You all know what that's how I got started. That's how I got all my knowledge, was Bigger Pockets. I would just binge listening to Bigger Pockets. While I was on the roofing on a 90 degree a day, I was out there listening to Bigger Pockets with my AirPods. That's, if you want to get started. And how many people in here have not bought bought an investment property? Okay. And how many in here have bought at least 5 investment properties? Perfect. So for the people that haven't bought any, what are you waiting on, and why haven't you done it yet? I was like, that's my question. Is I want you to go home tonight, and it's like, why haven't you done it yet? Because you could be like, I wish I would have bought mine at 18, because then that's the youngest I could buy one, right? Unless my parents would buy it for me. But I didn't. I bought my first one at 19. So what would I change is try to buy one at 18, but I can't, too late. I would just say is go out there. If you have a job, if you have some sort of income, you can find a way to make it work if you want the stress of doing it. But if you don't, then I don't know what to tell you. Go ahead. I'm done.
That's great. How about a big hand for these guys? It's interesting that you bring up the compound effect, because this is actually the 3rd meeting in a row that somebody has mentioned that book. That might be a clue. One quick announcement before we wrap up. speaker for next month. You heard me say at the beginning of the meeting that we like to mix things up. We like to just bring different people in. Sometimes it doesn't even have a whole lot to do with real estate. Next month will be no exception. So, and I hope you guys are okay with that. Like, I think it's important I want to bring people in. Like tonight was pretty specific on real estate, business, and so forth. But I also see a lot of value in topics that I would consider to be things that expand our thinking and broaden our perspective on the world around us, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes, but our speaker for next month is Judge Jeff Conrad from the Lancaster County Court of Common Pleas. I know him from a breakfast group that I have attended a number of times. I've heard him tell some stories, and this has been on my list for probably a year or more, where I wonder if we could get that guy to our meeting sometime. So sure enough, got connected with him, and he said, sure, I'd do that. I don't know exactly what he's going to talk about. I've heard him tell stories of just very thought-provoking things that he gets into in the world of being a judge in a pretty significant spot. He's a strong Christian man, so it's going to come across as, it might be something like living for Christ in an environment that denies his existence or something like that. He has told stories of leaving the courtroom to go pray when he's dealing with a really tough case. He has told stories of, as you can imagine, if you're in a position like that, a lot of times evidence gets brought in. You have to look at pictures and stuff, and he has to look at some pretty gruesome pictures sometimes that he would rather not see to be able to do what he does. So I don't know what he's going to talk about. He's going to tell some stories, but I think it's going to be quite interesting. He's a very interesting guy. If he's in this room, we'll probably give him a microphone to speak into, but he wouldn't really need one. He talks like a judge. He's loud. He's big. He's very decisive. So anyway, that's next month. Hopefully that interests you and you can come out. Again, if you are interested in the Short-Term Rental Summit, papers on the back. If you want to learn more about the sub-metering Chris Good talked about, papers on the back. We're going to wrap it up for tonight. Connect with some new people, get to know somebody new, and we'll see you back here the first Wednesday evening in April.